A new wave of violence has forced Africa's oldest national park to close for the rest of the year. Virunga National Park is located in the Democratic Republic of Congo and includes some of the world's most active volcanoes and is known for its diverse wildlife.
Virunga is also home to more than half the world's critically endangered gorilla population. And now poaching, deforestation, and violent attacks against rangers and tourists have gripped the park. So for more on this, we want to bring in CBS News foreign correspondent Debora Patta. She's joining us from Johannesburg, South Africa. Debora, can you just take us through the latest here? What's behind the decision to close this park to tourists?
Well, Anne-Marie, it's incredibly sad. As you pointed out, this is one of Africa's oldest game reserves, home to that critically endangered population of mountain gorillas and a very, very popular tourist destination. This is one of the few places where you can actually view the mountain gorillas in the wild. The tipping point, as it were, was an incident that happened last month when a ranger was killed and two British tourists were abducted by a militia known as Mai Mai and held overnight. What in fact happened is that their vehicle was attacked when driving from Goma, a city about 30 kilometers from the park's headquarters, while en route to their accommodation. The ranger was shot dead, the Congolese driver was wounded, and the two British tourists were kidnapped, held overnight, eventually rescued. But it's not the only incident. Earlier this year, 12 game rangers were killed in clashes with the militia and with poachers. So it is a very, very volatile area. Initially, the park was closed until the 4th of June, but then after an audit, they decided that they couldn't keep it open, that they couldn't guarantee effectively the safety of tourists, and so now it will only open next year.
So, Debora, what is fueling the violence there?
Well, Vlad, that's a very good question. It's actually a very complicated one, and we've spoken often about the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's beset by many social ills. It's horrifically poor. As you know, we investigated the use of children for mining cobalt earlier this year. We've spoken at length about the Ebola outbreak that the country is trying to contain. Now, on top of all this, they've got a lot to handle already, is the instability in the area where there is a lot of violence. In fact, violence flared in the DRC this year to levels not seen since the civil war between 1997 and 2003, when about 5 million people were killed during that period. In February, the violence was so bad that we saw thousands of residents of the DRC fleeing across the border to neighboring Uganda, seeking refuge in the refugee camps there. So it is very worrying indeed. What you have are these militia groups. They started many, many years ago. Often the violence is along ethnic lines, about territory, about farming issues. And whenever there's an issue, it's the fault line along which things tend to flare up. These militias essentially started as a buffer against invading Rwandan forces, but they've stayed in the area and tended to sort of exploit situations for their own benefit, really. They're known as Mai Mai, but that's a term that generally covers all rebel groups, and they have shifting alliances. They shift according to the government, according to different rebel groups in the area. On top of this, you also have additional instability. This is a country in which the current president, Joseph Kabila, was supposed to step down when his second term in office came to an end in 2016. He has so far refused to do that. There are supposed to be elections in December, but violence has flared up around this as well. The park is set to open next year, when it's hoped that these tensions will be eased. But, you know, we don't know what Kabila is going to do. He is a loose cannon. He could refuse to step down further. The elections might not take place, and the violence will continue, and the park will just lose visitors because all those people will shift across the border to Rwanda, which shares the Virunga Park with the DRC.
And I imagine not just lose visitors, but lose a tremendous amount of money, because these tourists spend a lot of money to get there. They spend a lot of money in fees to enter the park. That money is supposed to help this endangered population stay alive. So my question to you, Debora, is, you know, here you have less money now. You have a country gripped by poverty, instability, violence. What sort of impact is that having on the gorilla population?
Well, exactly, Anne-Marie. That is the problem. You're not getting these tourists. It's a very popular destination, in fact, with Americans as well. They make up about 20% of the visitors there. So that money is not being used for conservation. Already this population is critically endangered. It's incredibly sad because the park just announced that the population, which about 2 years ago was around 900 or so gorillas, has gone over the 1,000 mark. So that was very, very good news indeed. But they get caught up in this violence. Sometimes they get attacked as well. The poachers set snares for other animals. The gorillas get caught in those. There's the illegal charcoal mining in the area and the general instability which impacts on the gorillas. Throw into this mix climate change as well, which is impacting on their food resources and what is normally available to them, the deforestation in the area. This is not good news for the gorillas in general. And so it is a very worrying situation indeed. They're going to have to find money elsewhere. Who knows where that is going to come from to continue the conservation and also build up security in the area. What that security is going to look like, who knows? They're talking about more robust measures, but are they going to have armed guards on every block as tourists go through? It won't be a very pleasant experience for people. And again, people will just continue to go to Rwanda, which is generally considered a lot safer than the Democratic Republic of Congo.
You know, it's such, as you point out, Debora, a heartbreaking situation, not just for this declining natural resource, which is so beautiful and so integral to the landscape of the DRC, but also to the people that are struggling there and losing their lives because of the violence and the political issues that they're dealing with. As always, you provide the perfect analysis and reporting for us, Debora, in Johannesburg. Thank you so much.